4, multiply real numbers. We've done adding and subtracting. Now we're on to multiplying. The product of two real numbers with the same sign is positive. So if they're both positives or both negatives and they're being multiplied, it's automatically going to be positive. The product of two real numbers with different signs is negative. So if one is positive and one is negative, your answer is going to be negative. Properties of multiplication. So these are going to sound very similar to the ones we had for addition, but now we would say like of multiplication when we're specifying which one we're using. So commutative property says the order in which you multiply two numbers does not change the product. So A times B is equal to B times A. The associative property the way you group three numbers in a product does not change the product. So for example, if I have A times B in parentheses times C, that's the same as if I have A times in parentheses B times C. The identity property the product of a number and 1 is that number. So all that means is that if I multiply like A times 1 or 1 times A, that's just equal to A. The property of 0 says the product of a number and 0 is 0. So a times 0 is equal to 0 times a is equal to 0. And our last property is the property of -1. And this says the product of a number and -1 is the opposite of the number. So if I have a times -1 or -1 times a, that's just equal to -a. Something to note, the number 1 in the identity property is known as the multiplicative identity. So much like what we did with, what was it, section 2, I think it was, where you had some problems where you had to list like the property that was being used. You'll have to do that again, as well as just some like multiplying of numbers and things like that. All right, our first problems say to find the product. So some of these like early ones will be more like mental type math, but once they have more than 2 numbers, you should be showing me steps, okay? You shouldn't just have an answer if there's multiple things being multiplied by each other. So number 4, I have 11 times -2. So I have a positive times a negative, so what is this equal to?
-22.
-22. So opposite signs, so the answer is negative. 6, -8 times -11. They're the same sign, so it is
88.
positive 88. Number 8, -2.5 times -1.3. Now, I know that you cannot do this in your head, okay? Not like quickly. So you need to show steps out for this, okay? So 2.5 times 1.3, you need to actually show the steps of doing it. Move the decimal 2 places, so this is 3.25. So do not just go, that's 3.25. There should be work with it, and it should be near it. Some of you like to go like way down here and be like, I have no idea what that goes with, okay? When you show your work, you do it up with the problem that it goes with, okay? Any questions about that? 10. Negative 1/2 times negative 32. This one can be a quick math problem. What is this?
16.
16, and it's positive because they are the same sign. 12, I've got 0.5 times negative 20 times negative 3. So this one you should show steps for, because there's more than two numbers. So 0.5 times negative 20 would be what? Negative 10. Multiplying half of 20 is 10. So negative 10 times negative 3 is positive 30. So that's how your work should look for this. Let's see, 14. Negative 3 over 4 times 2 times negative 6. So what I would recommend you do is try to reduce down the fraction. I can take a 2 out of here, and that goes away and leaves you with a 1 there. So I have negative 3 over 2 times negative 6. I can reduce it down again. 2 and 6, that becomes a 1, and that's a negative 3. So negative 3 times negative 3 is 9. And the other thing with how you set up your stuff, you should always copy the problem out of the book. I'm going to start looking for that too, because a bunch of you just like to put down, oh, the answer's this, and there's nothing else with it. You need to copy the problem. Your work should look like my work. If it doesn't look like my work, something is wrong. Yes?
Oh, does that include like the big word problem?
No, if it's like a word problem, you don't have to write the whole thing down.
How is negative 3/4 times 2 9? Wouldn't it be lower than 2?
It's multiplied by this.
Oh, then yeah. But like, yeah.
We did step by step. 3/4 times 2 was negative 3/2 times negative 6 is 9. You have a question?
Yeah, so when you said like write down the problem, so on like evaluating expressions like 37, 2x plus y, I just plug it in instantly. So like
You need to write down the problem as it is and then plug in the number.
okay.
18. Negative 3 over 4 times negative 1 over 3 times negative 8 over 9. Right away, what do we see I can do with this one? Cross out the 3's. I have a 3 top and bottom. I can cancel that out. What else?
Can cancel out the 4 and the 8.
The 4 and the 8. The 4 will go away. The 8 will become 8, 2. So now I have negative 1 times negative 1 times negative 2 over 9. And what is that going to give me? What's negative 1 times negative 1? 1. So 1 times negative 2 over 9 is?
It'll be
Negative 2 over 1. Over 9.
Negative 2 over 9. All right, the next problem say to identify the property illustrated. So 20 is 0.3 times negative 3 equals negative 3 times 0.3. So they swapped the two numbers. So which property is that? Commutative. So you need to write commutative prop And now because we have multiple, you need to put of multiplication, but abbreviating it like that is fine. And on the quiz, you need to specify if it's of addition or if it's of multiplication if you want full credit. (22) -1 times -6 equals 6. Which property is this one?
Property of -1.
Yes, they've technically lumped two together, but I would take that. Property of -1. (24) 0 times -76.3 equals 0. What is this one?
Property of 0.
Property of 0. (26) in parentheses 3x times y equals 3 times in parentheses x times y. What is this one? Associative property of multiplication. Alright, the next one says you find the product and justify your steps. I don't care about the justifying part for these ones. You just need to find the product. So with 28, we got y times -2 times -8. So what is that going to give me?
You're gonna get a positive 16.
16 times x.
16 times
Y.
Oh.
So now multiply the numbers. -2 times -8 is 16, and then we have a y, and there's nothing further that I can do with that, so we just leave it as 16y. (30) 3/5 times -5q. I can do what first?
Cross out the fives.
Yeah.
Cross out the 5s.
27.
So I have 3 times -q, which is
3Q.
-3q. What about 34? -5t times -t. What's going to happen with one like this?
Cross out the T's.
They're both on the top. You can only cross them out if one's on the bottom. Is my answer going to be positive or negative?
Positive.
Positive.
Okay, it's going to be positive, so I have 5t times t is what?
5t.
What's t times t?
T.
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 T squared.
T squared.
T squared, so this would be 5t squared. Alright, the next one's evaluating the expression. Evaluate the expression when x equals -2. And y equals 3.6. So 38 -x minus 3y. So you write down the problem. Then you show what you're plugging in. So this is negative times -2 minus 3 times 3.6. And then you would continue working the problem. So what's negative times -2? That's going to be 2. And then what is -3 times 3.6?
10.8.
And so then 2 minus 10.8 is
-8.8.
-8.8. 40. Absolute value of y minus 4x. So I plug in the numbers. The absolute value of 3.6 minus 4 times negative 2. Absolute value of 3.6 is
3.6.
3.6. Negative 4 times negative 2 is,
Negative. I mean positive 8.
so 3.6 plus 8 is
11.6.
11.6. And last one, 42 x squared minus y squared. So negative 2 squared minus 3.6 squared. And notice here, this negative sign is not getting squared, okay? This one here. This one, though, is. So what is negative 2 squared?
4.
4 minus 3.6 squared. Work that out.
7.2. Oh no.
I got 23.8.
Oh, I did that so wrong.
Got 23.8.
I did
That's probably not
3.6
right.
times 2.
Hold on. I have the wrong numbers here.
Oh, that's right.
Nope, I did not have the wrong number there. Come back.
$12.96.
So 4 minus 12.96 is
Negative 8.96.
negative 8.96, and that would be your answer to that one. All right, any questions on any of this? All right, you should have more than enough time to finish this. Problems are 3, 5, 9, 13, 17, 21, 23, 31, 33, 37, 39, and 41.